The wind moved slowly across the dead land, carrying dust and the smell of ashes. She walked alone, her steps heavy, her body weak, her eyes filled with sorrow. Her name was lost even to herself, for no one called her by it anymore. Once she had a family, once she had a place, but now she was nothing but a shadow. The world around her was broken, the sky gray and silent, the ground cracked and lifeless. She had not eaten for days, her lips dry, her throat burning. Every step felt like the last, yet still she moved forward. Why she continued, she did not know. Perhaps some part of her hoped to find something. But hope was a word that had long left her heart. She was abandoned, unwanted, forgotten. Her people had cast her aside, calling her weak. They had taken all she had and left her with nothing. The voices of rejection still echoed in her mind. Unworthy, they had said. A burden, they had called her. Those words cut deeper than any wound. She looked up at the sky, whispering to no one. If this is the end, let it come quickly. Her voice broke like dry wood. The silence gave no answer, only the cold breath of the dying wind. Her body shivered, her hands trembling as she pulled the torn fabric of her clothes tighter around her. The land stretched wide and empty, with no sign of life. No birds, no water, no warmth, only endless silence. She thought perhaps this was her punishment, to walk forever without purpose, without love. Her heart cried quietly inside her chest, though no tears came. It happened. Far above, a light pierced through the heavy clouds. At first she thought it was the last vision before death. Her knees gave way, and she fell to the ground, staring at the sky. The light grew brighter, larger, moving closer. It was not like the ships of her people. Those were cold, sharp, filled with anger. This light was softer, strange, unknown. Her chest tightened with fear, yet something inside her whispered to wait. The sky thundered as the vessel descended, breaking through the dust-filled air. The ground shook gently as it landed. She crawled backward, fear rising in her veins. What new torment had come for her? What new cruelty waited? The hatch opened, and shadows appeared, figures unlike her kind. They stepped out, covered in strange suits, their faces hidden behind glass. She froze, too weak to run, too tired to scream. Her breath came in sharp gasps as the strangers approached. They did not raise weapons, did not shout. Instead, one of them lifted a small container and held it out. Inside it was water, clear and shining like a jewel. Her eyes widened, her lips trembling. She wanted to refuse, fearing a trap, but her body betrayed her. Her hand reached forward, shaking, as the container was placed in her palm. The water touched her lips, cool and soft. Her throat swallowed quickly, desperate, grateful, unbelieving. Another figure stepped closer, placing a piece of food in her hand. She stared at it, unsure, then tasted it slowly. Her body almost wept with relief as energy returned. Her heart beat faster, but not from fear. This was something else. Something she had not felt in years. Kindness. The strangers spoke, their voices strange. She could not understand their words, but their tone was gentle. No threat, no hate, only calm care. She looked at them, her chest heavy, tears now forming at last. She did not know who they were, but she knew one thing. They were not like her people. They had given her food, given her water, given her a chance. Her mind whispered, why? Why would they help me? But her heart whispered something else. Perhaps I am not forgotten. Perhaps I am not nothing. She sat there, weak and trembling, but for the first time in forever. The fire inside her soul, though small, began to burn again. She did not understand these beings. She did not know their names. But she felt it deep within. They had brought something she thought was lost. They had brought her the first spark of hope. And as the ship's light glowed around them, she knew her story was only beginning. The strange ship rested on the broken ground, its metal surface glowing faintly under the gray sky. Dust swirled in the air as the tall figures in their protective suits moved carefully, their steps heavy but calm. She sat on the ground, her body still weak, her eyes wide with fear and wonder. The taste of water still lingered on her lips, and the food in her stomach gave her just enough strength to keep breathing. But her heart pounded, for she had no idea who these beings were or what they wanted from her. One of the humans, taller than the rest, knelt in front of her. His helmet reflected her thin face, the broken lines of her life written in every shadow beneath her eyes. He raised a hand slowly, as if trying to show he meant no harm. His voice came through a strange device, soft but filled with purpose. She could not understand the words, yet the tone carried a warmth she had not known for years. The other humans stood nearby, watching carefully, not rushing, not forcing her to move. One of them opened a small container and pulled out more food, this time softer, easier for her to chew. They placed it gently on a piece of cloth in front of her, then stepped back. It was strange to her. Her own people never gave without demand, never offered without price. But these humans waited, patient, as if they respected her choice. Her fingers shook as she reached for the food. She expected them to snatch it back or laugh at her weakness, but they did not. They remained still, their eyes behind the glass watching with quiet concern. She took a small bite, then another, the warmth spreading through her chest. Tears filled her eyes again, not from pain this time, but from a feeling she could not name. The humans spoke to each other, their voices quick but not angry. She tried to catch a word, but the sounds were too strange, too different. Still, she felt the meaning in their gestures, in the way one of them pointed at the sky, then at her. Were they asking where she came from, or telling her where they came from? She did not know, but something inside her began to trust, even if only a little. As the day grew darker, the humans built a small fire near their ship. She watched in silence as they worked together, each one helping the other. It reminded her of a time long ago, when her people had once cared for her before they left her to die. The humans placed the fire between them and her, making sure she could feel the warmth. She stretched her hands toward it, her thin fingers glowing orange in the light. When her eyes grew heavy, she lay on the cold ground. But before she could close her eyes fully, one of the humans placed a soft blanket over her. Her breath caught in her throat, for no one had shown her such care since she was a child. She clutched the fabric tightly, her chest trembling. Sleep came quickly, but this time it was not filled with nightmares. It was filled with the memory of kind hands. In the middle of the night, she woke suddenly. The fire still burned, and the humans were sitting close, taking turns keeping watch. They did not sleep at the same time. They stayed awake to protect her, a stranger. Her heart ached, wondering why they would do this. She had nothing to give them, no power, no wealth, no reason for their kindness. She turned away, hiding her face in the blanket. She feared the hope that was rising in her heart, because hope had always betrayed her. Yet even as she tried to push it down, she could not ignore the truth. These humans were different. They were not her people, not the ones who had called her worthless. They looked at her as if she mattered, as if she was not broken beyond repair. When morning came, the humans brought more food. This time they used gestures, pointing at the food and saying words slowly. She listened, repeating the sounds in a quiet voice. The humans smiled, nodding, their eyes bright behind the glass. For the first time, she felt the beginning of a connection, a bridge between her and them. She did not understand their language, but she understood their intent. They were not enemies. They were not hunters or masters. They were something new, something she had never known before. She whispered to herself, almost afraid to believe it. "Friends," she said softly, the word foreign yet beautiful on her tongue. And in that moment, though her body was still weak, her soul began to rise again. For she had taken the first step into a bond that would change her fate forever. The sun rose weakly over the ruined land, its light breaking through the dust-filled sky. She woke slowly, wrapped in the blanket the humans had given her. For a moment, she thought it had all been a dream, but then she saw them moving near the fire. They were preparing their strange tools, checking their supplies, speaking in their gentle voices. It was real. These humans were still here, and they had not left her behind. Her heart ached with fear and doubt. She had seen kindness before, but kindness had always turned into cruelty. Her people once gave her food, once offered her comfort, but only to laugh later, only to remind her she was worthless. The memory burned in her chest, whispering that trust would only bring pain. She pulled the blanket tighter, her body trembling with confusion. One of the humans noticed her, the one who had first given her water. He knelt beside her and opened a small box. Inside were strange objects, pieces of cloth, bottles, and shining metal tools. He reached for her arm, pointing at a wound on her skin. Her body stiffened instantly, fear rushing through her like fire. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. Her voice was small but filled with terror. She pulled back, expecting anger, expecting the strike of punishment. But the human only stopped, lowering his hand slowly. Then he placed the object back inside the box and waited. The others watched in silence, making no move to force her. Instead, one of them sat down on the ground in front of her. She blinked in surprise as he took off one of his gloves and showed his own hand. Then he pointed to a small cut on his skin and mimed wrapping it with cloth. He was showing her, not demanding, only asking her to understand. Her breath came uneven, her eyes shifting between them. They could have held her down, they could have forced her, but they did not. They waited for her choice, as if her decision mattered. Slowly, her heart softened, and her hand lifted, trembling. She extended her arm, offering it to them with great hesitation. The human moved gently, cleaning the wound with water, covering it with soft cloth. It stung, and she flinched, but he did not laugh, he did not scold. He only nodded slowly, as if to say she was strong for enduring it. When it was finished, she stared at the clean bandage on her arm. Tears welled in her eyes, for it had been so long since anyone cared enough to heal her. That night, they shared food again by the fire. The humans used gestures to teach her words, pointing at the flames and saying fire, then pointing at the sky and saying sky. She repeated them, her voice soft and broken, but each time she spoke, they smiled. It was strange. Every mistake made them laugh, but not in cruelty, only in joy. Her chest warmed at the sound, the laughter of acceptance. Her people had laughed too, but their laughter had been knives. These humans laughed like sunlight, bright and gentle. For the first time, laughter did not make her shrink. It made her lift her head. It made her want to try again, to say the words louder. Still, the doubt in her heart did not vanish completely. That night, when the humans fell asleep in shifts, she thought about running. The land was empty, the cold sharp, but the fear of betrayal was worse than hunger. She stood, the blanket slipping from her shoulders, her feet pressing into the dirt. Her body leaned forward, ready to step into the darkness alone. But then she looked back. The firelight flickered across their faces, tired yet peaceful. One of them stirred in his sleep and pulled the blanket higher around his chest. She froze, the sight pressing into her heart like a blade of truth. If she left, she would return to silence, to hunger, to death. Her legs weakened, and she sank back down. For the first time, she realized the danger was not in staying, but in leaving. The test was not whether she could trust them. It was whether she could trust herself to believe again. She lay down slowly, clutching the blanket, closing her eyes with heavy breaths. The storm of doubt still raged inside her, but hope whispered louder than fear. When morning came, she did not run. She sat by the fire and waited for them to wake. And when they offered her food, she did not hesitate this time. Her hand reached out steady, her eyes meeting theirs with something new. It was not full trust yet, but it was the beginning, and that was enough. The nights were colder now, yet she did not freeze. The humans always made sure the fire was strong, always made sure she had a blanket, always shared their food. Her body was healing, her strength returning little by little, but her heart still carried scars deeper than flesh. Even when she smiled at their lessons, even when she whispered the new words they taught her, the shadows of her past never left her. At times, when the fire burned low, her mind drifted back to the faces of her people. She remembered the council that had judged her, their eyes cold, their voices sharp, their words final. They had stood above her as she knelt, begging, trembling, reaching for mercy. But no mercy came, only shame, only the cruel sentence that she was unworthy. Her family had turned their backs, her friends had fallen silent. No one raised a voice to defend her. "You are a burden," they had said. "Too weak, too slow, too useless," they had declared, every syllable carved into her like a blade. She had cried, she had promised to change, but they had only laughed. And in that laughter, she had lost not only her place, but her very belief in herself. Now, sitting by the fire with the humans, the memories returned like ghosts. Sometimes she would stare into the flames, her hands shaking, her breath uneven. The humans noticed, of course, they always noticed. One of them would gently place a hand on her shoulder, not forcing her to speak, not demanding answers. Only a simple gesture that told her she was not alone in the dark. One evening, as the wind howled outside their camp, one of the humans handed her a small device. It lit up, showing pictures, images of their world, their families, their homes. She stared at the glowing screen, her lips parting in awe. She saw children laughing, running through green fields, saw old faces smiling with kindness, saw entire cities shining with light. It was more than just pictures. It was proof of something she had never believed could exist again. But instead of comfort, pain struck her first, because it reminded her of what she had lost, of what had been taken. Her chest tightened, her throat closed, and she pushed the device away with trembling hands. The humans did not grow angry, did not scold her for rejecting their gift. One of them simply nodded, quietly placing the device back into his pack. Later, when she thought they were asleep, she wept softly into the blanket. The sound barely a whisper, but still one of the humans stirred. He sat beside her, not speaking, just keeping the fire alive. She turned her face away, ashamed of her tears, but he placed a small piece of cloth in her hand, a gesture so simple, yet it broke the dam inside her heart. She wiped her face, her shoulders shaking. The human still said nothing, but his silence was different from her people's silence. Her people's silence had been cruel, filled with judgment and cold rejection. His silence was gentle, patient, like an open door waiting for her to walk through. And though she said nothing that night, a seed of courage grew quietly in her chest. Over the next days, she began to share small pieces of her story. Her words were broken, her language weak, but the humans listened with all their hearts. She told them of the council, of the abandonment, of the endless wandering. Her voice cracked, but not once did they look away, not once did they call her weak. They listened as if every word mattered, as if she mattered. Each memory she shared was heavy, but each time she spoke it aloud, it became a little lighter. The humans did not erase her pain. They could not undo her past. But they gave her something her own people never had, dignity, and with every gentle nod, every quiet smile, she felt her broken pieces begin to shift. Not fully healed, but no longer scattered in the dust. One night, as the stars broke through the clouds, she sat beside the fire and whispered to herself. "Why me?" she asked softly, her eyes glistening. "Why do they care?" The humans could not hear her words, yet one of them looked up and smiled at her. And in that smile, she found her answer, not because she was useful, not because she had something to give, but simply because she was alive, and that was enough. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing sunrise, her life slowly changed. Her body grew stronger, her steps no longer stumbled as much, and her voice carried more words. The humans continued to teach her patiently, never laughing at her mistakes, never losing their kindness. Every evening by the fire became a lesson, and every morning became a chance to begin again. She no longer felt invisible. She no longer felt like nothing. She felt seen. One of the humans, the one with gentle eyes, pointed at himself and said clearly, "Friend." Then he pointed at her, repeating the word, his voice soft yet certain. She tilted her head, confused at first, the word strange on her tongue. But when she repeated it, "Friend," the human smiled wide and nodded. Her chest warmed as though a light had been lit inside her. The lessons continued, simple words that opened doors in her mind. Sky, fire, water, food. Each word was a stone placed on a bridge between them. She began to laugh when she got it right, her laughter small and broken, yet true. The humans laughed with her, their joy wrapping around her like the blanket they had given her. She realized then that language was not only about words, it was about hearts reaching for one another. One evening, the humans brought out a small object. It glowed and played sounds, songs of their world, voices singing in harmony. She listened, her eyes wide, the music soft and full of life. Her people had no songs for her, no voices that lifted her, only silence and rejection. But these strangers shared their songs freely, as if to remind her that beauty still lived in the universe. She closed her eyes, letting the strange melody flow through her. Her lips trembled, and she whispered the word again, "Friend." This time she did not say it as a student, but as someone who believed it. The humans looked at one another and nodded, as if they too understood the weight of that moment. A bond had been born, fragile but real, stronger than any chain her past had placed on her. Her trust grew not only because of their gifts of food and water, but because they gave her something far greater, dignity. They did not treat her as broken, did not see her as a burden. Instead, they spoke to her as if her voice mattered. They listened as if her thoughts had meaning. Even when she said only a few words, they waited, letting her find her strength. One night, as the fire flickered low, she tried to give something back. She picked up a small stick and drew in the dirt. The humans leaned closer, watching as she made simple shapes. She drew the broken symbol of her people, then crossed it with shaking hands. Her eyes filled with tears, but then she drew a new line, pointing to the humans, to herself, to the fire. The humans did not understand the full meaning, but they understood enough. They reached out and touched the drawing gently, nodding in respect. It was her way of saying she belonged here now, not there. That simple act, that small gift, was all she could give. And yet they received it with the same kindness as if she had offered them treasure. The next day, she tried to help more, gathering small branches for the fire. Her arms shook from the weight, but when she returned, the humans clapped softly. Their smiles were bright, their voices full of encouragement. She had not been praised in years, not since childhood. The warmth of their approval filled her with strength greater than food could ever give. That night, as stars glittered above, she lay awake, staring into the endless sky. For the first time in so long, she did not feel afraid of tomorrow. She whispered the words she had learned, one after another, like a prayer. Friend, sky, fire, home. Her heart beat steady, each word a reminder that she was no longer lost. The humans had given her food, water, and safety, but more than that, they had given her something no one else had ever given. They had given her the gift of belonging. And with that gift, she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she was worthy of living again. The days grew longer, and the land grew harsher, yet she no longer walked with the weakness of despair. Her steps were steady, her eyes brighter, and though her body was still thin, her spirit had found new fire. The humans continued to guide her, but now she was no longer only a receiver of kindness. She wanted to give back, to stand beside them, to prove to herself that she was not a burden. The thought alone gave her strength she had forgotten she carried. One morning, the humans prepared to travel farther. They packed their supplies, checked their strange devices, and signaled for her to follow. The land was broken, filled with ruins of stone and metal. the remains of war she could not forget. But this time she did not walk behind them in silence. She walked with them, her head lifted. Every step forward felt like a battle won against her past. The journey was not easy. Storms swept across the horizon. Dark winds carried dust so thick it choked the air. The humans secured their masks, their suits shielding them from the storm. She had nothing but the cloth they had given her. Yet when one of them noticed, he stepped close. He placed his own gear over her shoulders, sacrificing comfort so she could breathe easier. Her chest tightened, not from the storm, but from the weight of his choice. These humans risked themselves for her again and again. She no longer asked why. She no longer whispered doubts in the night. Instead, she told herself one truth. If they believed she was worth saving, then perhaps she was. The thought gave her courage greater than the storm could ever steal. When danger came, it was not only the wind. One evening, shadows moved beyond the firelight, eyes glowing in the dark. Creatures of the wasteland, thin and hungry, crept closer, their claws scraping the dirt. The humans rose quickly, their weapons ready, their voices sharp but calm. She froze, her heart racing, fear tearing at her mind. But then something inside her broke free. She grabbed a branch from the fire, the flames burning hot in her hands. She stepped forward, shouting with all the strength she had left. The creatures hissed, retreating from the sudden burst of firelight. For a moment, even the humans stared, surprised at her courage. Her body shook, the branch falling from her hands, but her eyes burned with new strength. She was not helpless, not weak, not the broken soul her people had cast away. She could fight, she could stand, she could protect what little she had. The humans quickly finished the battle, driving the creatures back into the dark. But when they returned to her, their eyes were filled not only with relief, but with respect. That night, they sat closer to her than ever before. They shared food, their voices soft, their laughter filling the cold air. And though she did not understand every word, she understood what their eyes told her. She was one of them now, not just someone they had rescued, but someone they trusted, someone who stood with them in the fire. The next day, she carried more branches, gathered more stones, did more than her share. The humans did not stop her, did not tell her she was too weak. Instead, they encouraged her, their voices lifting her spirit higher. Every task she completed felt like a piece of her broken self returning. Every smile they gave her was proof that she was no longer worthless. She began to dream again, small dreams at first. Dreams of walking farther, dreams of learning more words, dreams of seeing their world. At night, when she lay under the stars, she whispered to herself, "I can be more, I can be strong." The words no longer felt like lies, they felt like promises. And though she knew danger still lurked, though she knew storms and hunger and fear would return, she no longer felt powerless against them. Because strength was not only in the body, it was in the heart. And hers, once shattered, was slowly being rebuilt by the hands of humanity. Piece by piece, hope by hope, she was no longer just surviving. She was becoming whole again. The ship stood ready, its engines humming softly, a beacon of light against the broken world. For weeks she had walked beside the humans, sharing their food, learning their words, standing with them through storm and danger. Now the time had come for them to leave, to return to the sky, to return to a place she could not imagine but longed to see. Her heart pounded as she stood at the edge of their camp, staring at the open hatch of the ship. This was the moment she had both feared and dreamed of. The humans gathered their tools, their packs, their devices, moving with practiced ease. They looked at her often, their eyes calm but full of meaning. They had given her choice every step of the way, never forcing her, never binding her. Now they were offering her the greatest choice of all, whether to stay in the ruins of her past or step into the unknown with them. Her hands trembled as she clutched the blanket they had given her on the first night, the blanket that had saved her from the cold. Her eyes turned to the land around her. The cracked soil, the burned ruins, the silence of a place that once called her unworthy. Here she had been abandoned. Here she had suffered. Here she had nearly died. The memories weighed heavy, whispering that she belonged to this sorrow. But another voice whispered louder. The voice of fire, of laughter, of gentle hands offering food and water when she had nothing. One of the humans stepped closer, his hand outstretched, palm open. His helmet reflected her face, no longer hollow with despair, but filled with hesitant hope. He spoke a single word, one she had learned well, one that carried more meaning than any other. Friend. The word broke her heart and healed it in the same breath. She looked back one last time at the empty horizon. The land gave her nothing. The ruins gave her nothing. The silence gave her nothing. But these humans had given her everything: dignity, kindness, strength, and a reason to keep breathing. Her lips parted, whispering the word she once feared, the word that now felt like salvation. Yes, she said softly, stepping forward, friend. Her feet carried her up the ramp, slow at first, then stronger. The humans moved aside, welcoming her with quiet smiles. Inside, the ship glowed with soft light, humming with life. She touched the walls gently, her eyes wide, her heart racing with awe. This was not only a vessel of metal and fire, it was a vessel of new beginnings. The engines roared, the ground shook, and the world outside began to fade. She clutched the blanket to her chest, but this time not out of fear. This time it was a reminder of where she had come from, and how far she had risen. The ship lifted higher, breaking through the dust-filled sky. For the first time, she looked down at the world that had abandoned her and felt no chains, no shame, no weight. The humans spoke to her, their words still strange, but less foreign now. She caught fragments, gestures, smiles, the warmth of their presence wrapping around her. She answered with the few words she knew, her voice steady. Sky, she whispered, pointing upward, home. She added, her hand over her chest. The humans nodded, their eyes shining, for they understood. Her home was no longer the ruins below, but here, with them. Tears welled in her eyes, but these were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of rebirth, of a soul given back to itself. She had nothing left when they found her, nothing but pain and silence. Yet they had given her something greater than food or shelter. They had given her the gift of hope, the greatest gift of all. As the stars opened before her, endless and bright, she closed her eyes and breathed deeply. For the first time, her heart no longer asked, why me? Now it whispered, because I am alive, because I am worthy, because I have friends. And in that truth, she was no longer the lost soul wandering a dying world. She was reborn, carried forward by the hands of humanity into a future filled with light.